Hi everyone, this is Joyce Yip Green, and for my DQ6, I'll be talking about sustainability, evaluation, and budget. So I'll be answering the following questions. What is sustaining behaviors? Why are evaluations important? And do you really need a budget? This definition of sustainability is ensuring that behavior change remain prominent after the message is conveyed. So some ideas to sustain behavioral change include prompts, commitments and pledges, dissemination of evidence-based practices, plans for social diffusion, and use of public infrastructures. And I'll be going over some of these points in the next slides. So prompts are visual or auditory aids that remind us to engage in a predisposed action. So these prompts need to be noticeable, self-explanatory, be close to the target population, and encourage positive behaviors. So these could be some sort of sign or a sound that helps the viewer or the audience make that connection between your message and the targeted behavior. Um, target supporters are more likely to make an additional commitment after making an initial small one. So it's kind of like you're asking them to make just a small investment, which may or may not lead to a larger commitment, but the hope is that they will make an additional commitment. So for instance, if we are wanting a business owner to change the way that they view, issues related to young children, maybe changing the menu of their restaurant. Maybe they may agree to make a commitment to change one aspect of the menu rather than the entire menu, but depending on the results of that initial change, then they may decide to make a larger one. So these commitments and pledges need to be public, and it's easier to seek commitments in groups to engage them in performing the activity and then having an existing contact point for solicitation. So it's helpful to, when you have your targeted supporters, that basically by word of mouth or having somebody who's already adopted to this particular pledge or commitment, it'll be more likely to solicit or elicit more contacts for commitments. Dissemination of EBPs. So evidence-based practices, we know that, especially in healthcare, there is the use of evidence-based practices. However, there's been a haphazard adoption of evidence-based practices. So that's one aspect that has been proposed by the authors for a framework for dissemination of these evidence-based practices. And but one thing we have to consider is that evidence-based practices haven't really been established in underserved population. There is a lack of research evidence for evidence-based practices in indigenous populations or in poor countries. And so we need to really think about this dissemination of EBPs and really think about using the best evidence from research matched with clinical expertise and experience and the patient or target population perspective and input. So it's a good idea to work with organizations to refine practices and also to provide policy and funding support. So this is the framework for dissemination of the EBPs is in collaboration with organizations who can support in changing policies and providing funding. Plans for social diffusion. It's important to make support for behavior adoption visible. This will help with social diffusion and to use durable versus temporary indicators. These are engaging key supporters and making the norms visible. So some practices for social diffusion is to make sure that this behavior is, you can use social media, you can make sure that it's visible so that this social diffusion is enacted. And then there's also use of public infrastructure. So you can do this by creating opportunities for sustained visibility in public places through signage or collaborations with public agencies to deliver the message. And those have been some recommendations for the use of public infrastructures. So why are evaluations important? Well, they are very important. I like to think of them as the who, what, how, why, where, when, and how much, right? So the 5 components to an evaluation plan is purpose, results, methods, timing, and budget. And evaluations are important because it helps to understand if the campaign meets the targeted goals or changes in behavior, knowledge, and attitudes. When we think about the purpose of the evaluation, it establishes why we are conducting the evaluation, who is the target audience, what will be measured in the results, how will those measurements be conducted through the methods, and when will those measurements be made and by whom. So that will establish the timing. And then finally, the budget. How much will it all cost? And it's important. It really helps in a campaign to have an evaluation plan so that we can establish the effectiveness of the campaign. So do we really need a budget? I think it's very important to have a budget because this will establish a return on investment. So the budget is part of the evaluation plan. It needs to be integrated in the evaluation plan so that we can also determine the price for strategies and activities, compare with current funding levels, and identify potential additional resources. So this is helpful for supporters to get or to gauge whether or not it's doable, whether these strategies and activities are affordable, whether they're doable, and whether or not it's something that they would like to invest in. So all 3 of these questions have been answered in this presentation, and I look forward to your comments. Thank you very much.